Hey, brothers and sisters from the Starknet ecosystem. Welcome back to the Stark Cafe. This is Nurstar speaking, your personal Stark barista. And once again, we are ready to delight you with some very special Starknet content. Well, my dear friends, in this episode, we are going to dive deep into one of the most used developer platforms in Web3 and into the implementation of Starknet inside their powerful stack. Obviously, I'm talking about none other than the Alchemy platform. And today we have the pleasure to host Vitto Rivabella, lead dev Rel at Alchemy. And together with him, we'll understand how this platform is helping blockchain developers to turn their ideas into solid and successful Web3 dApps, while we'll also discuss how their tools and services will be able to boost development on Starknet. However, let's welcome our special guest for today. Hey Vito, how are you?
Hey yo, all good, all good. Thank you so much for inviting me. That was one of the best introductions I've ever heard in a space, actually.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Vito. We just missed the music, right? Yeah, and thanks a lot, Vito. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us at the Star Cafe. I met Vito during the Tokyo Week last month, and I was lucky enough to attend some of the many interesting talks which were held by him and by the Alchemy team in such a magic city. However, let's start this cafe with an icebreaker about yourself, Vito. Would you mind telling us a bit about your background while leading us to how and when you joined the Alchemy team, please?
100%. So let me see. I want to keep it super short. I joined Web3. So first and foremost, I am Vito. I'm leading developer experience at Alchemy. For those that don't know Alchemy, Alchemy is a Web3 developer tooling platform and node provider. We cover some of the biggest Web3 companies to date and also Web2 companies exploring Web3. On top of that, we have universities, educational initiatives, and so on and so forth. But who am I? Well, I am a Web3 developer, full stack developer. I actually started in as an artist. I was like a 3D artist a bunch of years back. And then I transitioned into web development. And I had this close friend that he was already into Web3 in 2013. Lucky him. And he was like, dude, you should definitely try. No, he didn't make that much money actually because I mean, unlucky, I would say. But it was like, dude, you should definitely look into Web3. You should definitely explore smart contracts. You should try to buy some cryptos. But my dad is like a bank guy. So I was one of these people that were like, oh no, it's a scam, continue living in a dreaming world. And then one day, I don't really recall the reason. I developed my first smart contract and I put my hands on Solidity and I was completely mind blown. And so started learning. And then in January, I started creating content about that. In January, I remember Elan from the Alchemy team writing me a message, January 2022, I think. Yeah, 2022, writing me a message. She was like, hey, do you want to collaborate? And I was like, hell yeah, you know what? I actually want to apply. So I applied and I joined, yeah, in January 2022 at Alchemy. Since then, it's been an amazing journey to make developers' life easier when developing Web3. Again, thank you so much for having me here. Excited to explore more the Starknet ecosystem that sounds to be very active at the moment.
Awesome, Vita. Thanks a lot for sharing your background with us. And let's start switching our focus to Alchemy now, although you've already said some words on it. But, even though the Alchemy platform is a very well-known Web3 infrastructure player, could we briefly explain to those listeners and that's who maybe don't know Alchemy stack very well yet, what Alchemy is in details and the vision behind Alchemy and which are the suite of products and services that Alchemy provides to developers who are building on the blockchain field, please.
If you have a couple of hours, I can answer to everything. No, just kidding. So if you're of a laptop or if you have a laptop, if you're using a laptop to listen to this space, definitely go on alchemy.com. And Alchemy is again, as I briefly said, a Web3 developer tooling platform and node provider. But what does it mean? And again, powering some of the biggest companies and so on and so forth. But what does it mean? Well, we have two big, I would say, core businesses. On one hand, we have the node provider. That was the OG business that we started back in 2017. What we do is we spin up think about the cloud, and the cloud made easier for developers to spin up servers, and then serverless became a thing, but in general to spin up infrastructures. So it lifted up the heavy duties of maintaining, building infrastructures, data warehouses, and so on and so forth, and it abstracted away in the cloud. So now you can pay monthly fees, you can pay usage-based fees to power your applications. For decentralized applications, you don't need a server because that's the whole purpose. Well, not by default you don't need a server. Most of cases you will need a server, but that's another story. But let's say you are building a purely decentralized application. You have to spin up a node. You need a node. You have two ways to get your hands on this node. One is to spin up your own node, and it's just like spinning up a server. You need hardware, you need maintenance, you need to update your software, or you can use a node provider. Now, like Alchemy, what we do is we provide the nodes. Now, it's not that simple. On top of that, if you want to scale to millions of users, to hundreds of thousands of users, if not billions of users, you will need more than one node, of course, like you will need more than one server. So you will need to repeat the same hurdle over and over again. The problem there is that the blockchain is not like a database. The blockchain is nodes actually synchronizes at different times. So what happens if you're building an application with multiple nodes is that your data consistency when calling multiple nodes will be impacted. So you call node 100 and you get data 99. You call 101 and you get data 98 instead of 100. You call node 102 and you get again data 99. So you don't really know what is the correct data that's present on the blockchain. What Alchemy does is making sure that you always receive the most up-to-date, the most reliable, the most correct data to your applications. And that's a thing called Supernode that we developed. And this, as a story, is the node provider part. The other part is the APIs. On top of our nodes, we built APIs that allow you to fetch data from the blockchain in an easier way. Today I was reading this tweet on Twitter. It was so interesting. And it was this guy that actually realized that fetching the token balances, all the tokens and their respective balances owned by a wallet is not that easy. Because if you call balance of, well, you need to call it against something, right? So you need to know all the tokens that they own already. And the only way to do that is to track down all the transfers from block genesis to today. And in that way, you can understand which tokens the wallet is owning. It takes millions of calls and is very, very expensive. With Alchemy is an API call that is get tokens for wallet. And you get all the tokens that you want from a given wallet. On top of that, we have other APIs such as NFTs API that does the same thing but with NFTs based data. And this is what we do with our enhanced APIs. We just released the custom webhooks that allow you to get real-time blockchain data directly onto any API that supports post requests based on a GraphQL query. So you can filter data based on GraphQL queries. If you're not familiar with GraphQL, it's an amazing way to build APIs that are not RESTful. Now, on top of that, on top of all these things, what Alchemy does is trying to drive the Web3 ecosystem to the better, to update it and make the developer experience better, as well as investing in projects. We have a venture firm, and as I was saying, we also have an education initiative that is called Alchemy University, that is completely free. And here in the audience, I can see Alicia, that is one of our ambassadors. Hey Alicia, hey Pandit, by the way, Ekshai, Mutu, Starknet Africa, Nathan, and Kadawari. Super happy to have you here. And what we do there is we teach people how to get started into Web3. But I'm sure that we will come back to it in a few minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, very good, Vitto. Thanks a lot for this marvelous overview on Alchemy and its stack. And right now, I'd like to transition a bit deeper into the Starknet-related Alchemy toolsets. As many of us know, Alchemy has implemented Starknet to their stack last week, and making it the first non-EVM ZK scaling solution to be supported on its developer platform. So, Vitto, tell me, how was the journey like to bring Starknet on Alchemy, and which of the services that you mentioned earlier are already available for Starknet, and which ones will come in the near future?
100%. That's a great question. First, Starknet is a bomb, folks. It's super cool. I had the pleasure to put my hands at work in these days, trying to write a couple of tutorials and think about how we can empower the ecosystem. But it's amazing. The story. So you should definitely talk to Kunal, that is our engineer that made it possible and actually helped integrating the whole technology onto our platform. But it was kind of smooth. I think the Starknet team did an amazing job, APIs wise and RPCs wise, to make it as easy as possible to implement it in a architecture, in an infrastructure that is as complex as Alchemy is. So kudos to them, kudos to the team. The developer experience is amazing. So I don't really want to talk too much about the actual like technical implementation of Starknet onto Alchemy because it might get super technical very quickly. But for your interest, it was super smooth. We had our engineers worked all along with the Starknet team. We have this amazing group with the Starknet team, with everyone who's talking and chatting and trying to solve problems, bugs, making everything more performant. It's amazing to see these situations developing because it's like you see these big brains all at work trying to make something that we scale to like hundreds and thousands of users. So super interesting. Developer experience wise, though, what Alchemy is doing for the Starknet ecosystem. Well, the first thing that is a thing that I think we do really well is communities and education. That is the first step to onboard developers into any ecosystem. If people do not know how to develop using your programming language, like in the case of Starknet, or your infrastructures, or your don't know the ecosystem that is surrounding your chains or product, well, it's very difficult to onboard them. So our first step will be to create educational content, tutorials, guides, develop docs, examples. We have Create Web Free app that you never use. If you never use Create Web Free app, it's a package that allows you to spin up web-free applications directly through the CLI, and you can create smart contracts also directly through the CLI without leaving your terminal, right? So we want to bring the Starknet ecosystem into these tools that are making developers' life easier on other ecosystems, such as the EVM one. On top of that, when we talk about technologies and enhanced APIs, I don't want to spoil too much. There is a lot of alpha coming on. Of course, our engineers are working to implement as much as possible from the Alchemy platform toolings into the Starknet ecosystem. I cannot disclose dates today, but if you keep an eye on Alchemy platform, the handle here on Twitter, you can just stay updated. We also have a newsletter for developers that have alpha million developers subscribe to it, and just talks about the latest in Web3 technologies, protocols, and Alchemy, of course. So you can definitely keep an eye on that. Again, taking a step back for the education platform, I think the first things that I'm working on are a bunch of tutorials on how to transition from one word to the other because it's very interesting. And folks, that's the best part, integrated account structure. It's such a bomb thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vitto. And actually, I wanted to ask you how it was like working with a new programming language, seeing that Starknet Starknet supports a different language than Solidity. We're talking about Cairo 1.0. And you told me that you didn't go, that far in the technical work behind that. Maybe you must have eavesdropped something from the technical team? Did you hear something about how it was like working with a new programming language? How was the Alchemy approach towards Cairo?
So in general, to implement Starknet onto the Alchemy platform, Cairo wasn't really touched, right? The low level infrastructure is not built on top of Cairo. That's more for like the developer experience. So I can talk more on my experience and writing tutorials, and for the docs team and the tutorials team, how was that? For the engineers that actually implemented Starknet onto Alchemy, I would say they are big brains. We have Kunal that probably already knows like something like 50 programming languages, so he had picked that up quite easily. My experience. new programming languages are always traumatizing. You have to change the way you think, the way you read the words. It's like learning a new language. There are principles that are the same, but it's just like Spanish and Italian, and we can say JavaScript and Python, right? Um, so I would say that was really interesting. I really appreciate a bunch of things that Cairo does to make things easier for the developer experience. Like for example, the memory management is kind of fancy. The way it handles all the code just in a already in a ZK optic. Also, I never mentioned the fact that Starknet, for those that are not from the Starknet ecosystem, is ZK Alchemy scalability solution. So there are other things that come with it, right? So learning a programming language on one hand for like better performances and transactions per second, lower costs on the other side. But again, going back to Cairo, Cairo does a lot of things better than Solidity, I would say. And a lot of things, on the other hand, of course, worse than Solidity, but just because it's a younger programming language. So every time you see new programming languages, they always have some kind of like quirk. They will be solved. I'm sure that the team will solve this. Memory is super important. Native account abstraction, again, super important. The way smart contracts are conceptualized, they are not like a close environment, but like a list of functions that they can call. The, the only problem I would say that is something that we want to solve is the educational material. Like if you are a new developer that is moving its first steps into Web3 or in development in general, starting with Cairo is impossible. Is you can't do that, and it's not because the programming language itself is too hard, but it's just like starting with Solidity in 2017. Impossible. No documentations that were actually comprehensive and easy to read for new developers, or like no content that was easy to. Yeah, I see Kanawari laughing. I think she or they definitely like read the documentation a few years back. Yeah, the study documentation a few years back because it was like shameful, of course. So, but it's not shameful. Like the thing is that we learned a lot, and so the Starknet ecosystem with Cairo made a good job making life easier for developers already. Of course, the more developers will onboard into the ecosystem, the more content there will be, the more tutorials, the easier it will be for new developers to join. It's always like that, right? So the first step, TLDR, is onboard new developers and create better content for to allow this new programming language to be understood. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it was pretty cool to hear about your early experiences with Cairo. I hope you'll have a bright future dealing with Cairo, and yeah, you also finished your speech with talking about the importance of attracting new developers into Cairo and the challenges behind it. And in fact, the next question is about education, because as you know, in Web3, as in most software technologies, we need more developers, not only Web3 devs who would like to transition into crypto, but I would also say that we need to create developers from scratch, in the sense that we have to show non-technical people the importance and the opportunities that blockchain programming can bring into their lives and into society. Therefore, in order to make this happen, there must obviously be educational paths that could turn these people into developers in a relatively short period of time, and also with affordable education around it. And I think Alchemy has been doing something great in this direction with the Alchemy University, which have been teaching Web3 programming to both Web2 programmers and total beginners. So, Vitto, would you mind giving us an overview on the Alchemy University and on its educational offers, please?
100%. That's the best question. I love Alchemy University. We worked so hard on that. And so thanks so much for asking this question. I know that maybe someone here in the audience already is a student at Alchemy University, but let me give you a two lines, quick story of what happened. Back last year, the amazing team from ChainShot joined us. ChainShot was a company that created a state of the art. Ethereum bootcamp, 10 weeks, 7 weeks. It was 10 weeks. It was 10 weeks at that time. 10 weeks Ethereum bootcamp. That of course was kind of pricey. It was like $3,000 to attend. It was like a cohort base, so every week people were going to classes and were learning Ethereum. We actually saw that online one day and we were like, oh my god, this is so cool. And I attended it. And it was like even cooler because everything was explained so well. So we started talking with their team and we decided to join forces. In August, they joined us. And the first thing that we did is making all the courses completely free. So actually, they had two courses, JavaScript Fundamentals, that was called JavaScript 101, and the Ethereum Development Bootcamp. They were $3,000, and I can't recall how much dollars. They are completely free. And we opened university.alchemy.com. So Alchemy University is a platform that offers free, web-free, state-of-the-art educational material to bring you from total I know nothing about coding to I know how to develop a escrow smart contract to move value from one wallet to the other. So it's big in that sense, but what makes it bigger is the community. So on top of that, we have an amazing Discord server with all of our folks inside. And inside of that, we have the Alchemy ambassadors and we have the guilds. We have events, quizzes, weekly live sessions, and so on and so forth to help the students that are going through the course learn more and ask questions. So if you have a question, you don't have to attend it by yourself, like on Udemy, right? Or in many of the other courses that you might find out there. B, to stay accountant, because that's accountability is very, very hard, especially if you're learning online. And we learned that with time, especially during the pandemic. So having a community where you can interact, where you can ask questions, where you can hang out with, build projects, exchange things, or win rewards, participate into quizzes, events, and so on and so forth, it's actually super helpful to continue in your learning process, in your learning journey. So this is what Alchemy University is two programs. One is JavaScript Fundamentals, the other is the Ethereum Bootcamp that teaches you how to develop on Solidity, smart contracts, how the blockchain works, cryptography, literally everything you need to know to start applying at companies or build your own projects. And then there is the community, that is this big part that we just spoke about. You should definitely check it out. It's on university.alchemy.com. Again, completely free, so you just need to sign up and you can start learning right away. And shout out again to the ChainShot team. And I don't know if Elisha and Pandit actually completed the course, maybe, but they're definitely students of Alchemy University.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's very nice to know that there is such an academy where people can start learning Web3 programming for free. And speaking to the audience, whether you think you're cut out for programming or not, I think that just attending such an educational path to become a blockchain developer from scratch would bring you a lot of game-changing knowledge about the space, even if you end up working more on other sides of the industry, like growth, marketing, investments, and so on. And also, I'm talking from my own personal experience, as I attended a similar course at another blockchain academy in the first half of 2020, which wasn't for free actually, where I learned Solidity programming from scratch. Starting with the JavaScript basics. But then in the end, I didn't turn that experience into a dev career, as I still felt some tech limits due to zero previous programming experience. And I also had to focus a bit more on my personal investments, as DeFi season and the overall bull run were in sight. But however, learning Solidity and the infrastructure around it obviously gave me a big edge in both my investments practices and also in the journey as a fundamental driven content creator. So guys, whether you are a Web2 dev or a total beginner, as Vitto said, head to university.alchemy.com in order to move the first steps towards your first Web3 degree. And last but not least, let Alchemy know that you want to learn Cairo 1.0 as soon as possible. Let Vitto know that. And I'm sure they will also add some Cairo courses as well. And what do you think about my view, Vitto?
About getting Cairo on Alchemy University? Was that the question? Maybe I don't know if you can hear me, but if the question was about getting Cairo on Alchemy University, we are
Yeah,
definitely thinking. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Vito, my mic was off. Yeah, I just wanted to know whether you also think the importance of having, of at least trying a course to learn a blockchain programming language, even though you don't want to become a developer, a blockchain developer, but you work like on marketing in the industry.
That's such a good point. Yeah, sorry, I actually missed that. This is such a good point. It's very similar, and I totally agree. First, I totally agree. What I think though, and it goes back, I think, when I was like 13 years old. And I used to spend so long in front of computer playing video games. And I was playing League of Legends like crazy, World of Warcraft right like crazy, and every day I was on there, right? Um, and and then I got more and more interested, and I started thinking, well, if I don't understand how these things work, if I don't understand how games work, if I don't understand how games are made, if I don't, and that's why I started as a VFX, as a 3D artist. But if I don't understand how all these things are working and who's behind, well, I'm kind of controlled by it, right? I'm literally at the mercy of the game I'm playing, of this, and it's like using the phone. If you don't know how the phone works, you're just at the mercy of it, and just end up using hours and hours and hours of your life in front of a screen looking at videos, watching videos. When you start learning, and it's the same for the blockchain. If you don't know how the blockchain works, you risk a lot, way more than just watching videos for the whole day. So what you need to do in most of cases, when you enjoy something, when you like spending a lot of time into something, especially in the blockchain ecosystem, well, you should probably learn how that works, right? You probably want to learn how transactions are made, how cryptography are made. When we talk about privacy on ZK rollups, don't learn that. This is insanely hard. No, I'm kidding. But like, learn how ZKs work and so on and so forth. All these things are super important. Now, there are a lot of types of courses, though, I think. The Ethereum Bootcamp, it's a little coding heavy. So if you don't really have interests in coding, well, probably you want to spend your time more on other things. Like the All In podcast is amazing, and they have great episodes on how the blockchain works. Noorstar is amazing with non-technical content and also technical content. So definitely follow this kind of content. But in general, yeah, like learning and understanding how the things that you like work is super important. On top of that, I think blockchain will be kind of game changing in the future. So learning how that works and how this is going to be game changing, and not because of NFTs and cryptos, but because of like digital identities, CBIL resistant digital identities, or because of like transparency in government, monetary movements, or even better, banking for the unbanked. There are tons of people, like 60% of the worldwide population is completely unbanked. And by unbanked, I mean they don't have any banks. So, and people that are living like in first and second world countries don't really know that. But all these things, you can learn them only by actually learning and not just being a joiner, a watcher, I would say.
Very well. Yeah, that's an amazing view, and I completely agree with you as well. And first of all, thanks a lot for the shout out as well. And all right, guys, we are coming to the end of this awesome Star Cafe, where we learned a lot about the Alchemy platform and their recent Starknet implementation. Let's see if there's someone from the audience who would like to ask Vito for a question. If so, please send your speaker request within the next 20 seconds or so. And in the meanwhile, I would like to remind you that you can check all the Starknet related Alchemy documentation at alchemy.com/Starknet. And you can also reach out to Vito and to the Alchemy team for any doubt, question, and advice. And furthermore, if you still not have a lot of familiarity with the Starknet ecosystem, I suggest you to have a look at the Starknet for Everybody onboarding course on the Nurstar YouTube channel. And you can also follow our Twitter for recaps and Star Cafes like this one. With that being said, let's see if we have any speaker requests. So we have none. And let's close our Star Cafe. And before doing that, however, let's thank Vitto for coming today. Thanks a lot, Vitto. It's been an amazing time.
That was a pleasure, Nurstar. Thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you to everyone that stood with us for the last 30 minutes. It was super interesting. We're looking forward to dig deeper into the Starknet ecosystem and, as you were saying and kind of recalling, create content that will help developers learn how to develop on top of Starknet that has amazing features. And yeah, if you want to check out Alchemy, alchemy.com. If you want to check the university, university.alchemy.com. Pandit, I'm going to send you a lot of hearts as well.
Great. Looking forward to hosting you, Vitto, at the Star Cafe again in the near future to follow up on the news around the Starknet stack at Alchemy. Furthermore, I would also like to thank all the listeners for coming to the Star Cafe. Thanks a lot for your support. Very appreciated. I wish you all a great weekend. So guys, it's time to close the Star Cafe. Remember sharing the Starknet vibe and see you on the next time. Bye. Bye, Vitto. Bye, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.